All right. So another week. Michigan, thumbs up, right? Thumbs up.
Yeah. Another, was it 15 now? Different winners, and we're
Kevin Harvick,
closer and
yeah.
closer. Yeah. Finally, he won. We finally get him, and that's why we capitalize on that big number, even on the championship futures. Because once he wins, we've seen this. Drivers get a win, and here they go. So
You never know.
and Phoenix, like I said, 2-3 weeks ago, we talked about this. That Phoenix is the championship race. We've seen how
That's
the top
right.
four just kind of separate themselves. Well, who's the best driver
Yeah,
overall?
that's it.
Harvick, and you get a big number on him on the future. So it's still not too late, but he got that win, and
We warned everyone. If you want Harvick, if you think he's going to do it, put him in your futures when you had the chance, because his futures numbers, what did they drop down to 20, right?
Yep, 20.
Okay. So you could have had him 50, 100. So
now you get him at 20, and if he runs well again this weekend, which I don't know why he wouldn't. He's pretty good at Richmond, and I'm not saying he's going to go out and win, but he can get you a top 5. I think that 20-1 quickly becomes like 12-1. I think they're finally going to start noticing that, hey,
probably.
It's a past champion, and now he's in, and you can make a strong case now that, he's in now. It doesn't matter because he's far enough up in points, even if multiple guys, we still get a couple more first-time winners. It's not like he's going to get bumped out, but, you look at some of the tracks in the playoffs that shape out in his favor, yeah, he can get to, for sure, championship 4.
Yeah, let's take a look at the standings here. And so there you go. Martin Truex Jr. now below the line for today.
For today.
And look, last week it was about Harvick was the only driver. Now it's Truex is the only driver on the outside that has a realistic chance that even if they get in, they could do something. Everybody else, obviously, they got to win to get in. But it's just amazing because both Truex and Blaney now, if Truex wins this week, then Blaney goes behind the line. It'd be interesting because if you look at the tracks we got going on, Truex could win this week. Nobody would be surprised. Blaney could win Daytona. Nobody would be surprised. If that were to happen, who's on the outs?
Kurt Busch. Kurt would be out. It's because he's the low man on the totem pole as far as the winners. So it's basically multiple wins are in, just because you get that they go by the standings like that, and then it goes in order of points accumulated for the season among your one-time winners. And we have several that have only won once. Naturally, if you get 15 winners, not too many guys have won multiple times. So the lowest of that is Kurt Busch. And granted, a lot of people are like, I haven't heard of this before. Well, we've never had this many winners in a regular season before. So it used to be you win a race, they're like, oh, he's guaranteed he's in the playoffs. Well, this year it's not. Now there's a realistic shot, like you just said. There's a path that you could get 3 more first-time winners on the season in these next 3 weeks, which puts you at 17 or 18. I'm sorry. So that would put Kurt Busch, and also where we sit right now, Austin Cindric, out. So long as somebody below those guys wins these next couple of races. Because you look at Blaney, he's second in points, and Truex is fourth in points. If they both win, they're ahead. They're automatically, and just like Harvick's ninth in points. So, yeah, if I'm Kurt Busch, Austin Cindric, Chase Briscoe, I'm probably a little nervous right now. Because also, if you look in the points, Eric Jones is ahead of all 3. What if he wins? He could win Daytona.
Yes.
He could win the road course. He's ahead of them in points. So, yeah, you're a little nervous if you're those guys right now. You're really hoping for them. Hey, if I can't win, let's let somebody else who's already won a race this season win, because I don't want to go to Daytona if I was them wanting to know I could be out if somebody new wins.
I still think that this NASCAR playoff board is completely confusing.
It is.
I don't understand why they don't see that. Because, like, for instance, you say, all right, Kurt Busch. So if I'm just looking at this, I can't see that unless I go, oh, wait, there I see Kurt Busch is minus 362 behind. So if I look at everybody, he's the one that has the most points behind. But on this chart, he's 4 drivers up on the rankings form. And if I just click on points, where is he? If I click on points,
20th.
the hell is Kurt Busch? There he is. He goes all the way down to 20th. But you're saying he's not 20th. Is he 17th then, theoretically, if Blaney and Truex win?
Yeah.
Okay.
If Blaney and Truex win, he'd be, well, yes. The overall standings, but playoff standings, yeah, he'd bump to 17th.
Yeah. Okay.
So
there you go.
So yeah, right now he's, with him missing these last 2 races, it's pretty much, it's hurt him. It's kind of made Cindric and Briscoe, those guys, breathe a little easier, knowing, hey, I'm not the low end of the totem pole or risk being down there. Because I mean, Kurt Busch, we saw it before his injury, was running pretty well. So now those guys can breathe a little bit easier. But that's, if you get another winner, you're not going to be breathing very easy because you're 2 winners away from them being knocked out, and there's a very real chance again that could happen. So those guys' path, simple, win a race. And I do need to make a thing too to say, Denny Hamlin will notice he's 17th in points right now. So people might think, well, why Hamlin, or why is Hamlin not in the same boat as Cindric, who's actually got more points than him? Well, Hamlin's won twice. Hamlin just doesn't have to worry about it because he's won multiple times. So it's a mon.
Yeah.
So that's why. So yeah, if you're Briscoe and Cindric, go out and win and not have to worry about it. So those guys, it's kind of made this season where points don't really matter right now. Chase Elliott's kind of ran away with the regular season. You got a guy that's second in points that may not even make the playoffs, which is wild to think about, which means this could be one of those unicorn type seasons. It may not ever happen again with this many winners, but
they better not screw around with the car or anything else. This better be the way it's going to be every year.
Yeah. And if it is, I'd like to maybe see a way the top, if you win a race at this point, if you win a race, let them in the playoffs. No matter 17, 18, just let them in. And then maybe have a provisional for like Blaney. If you're in the top 5 in points, but you don't have a win, let him in. I mean, who's to say Blaney? I mean, he's had a good season. He just hasn't won. And then in the playoffs,
maybe you give him
still
one
eliminate
round to win.
Yeah, and it might take care of itself anyways, because you won't have that many playoff points when you get into the playoffs to advance on. But that'd be like your 16 seed in the NCAA tournament could go on a Cinderella run.
Yeah.
But who's to say you can't have 20 and you still go down to 12? You just eliminate 8 drivers in the first round, which would make the first round all that more chaotic because you got more drivers. But I just don't like the fact that we're like, all right, this guy won, but we're going to send him home anyways. It's just, hey, you won a race. Let's make it even more interesting.
Yeah, because that should be, hey, we won a race, we're in. It should be, you win, you're in. That makes it a lot easier, and I agree with you. Give them...
Because it gets confusing. This whole playoffs thing, it gets confusing when it's this way, because like, well, wait a minute. I kind of like the numbers, like, oh, Kurt Busch, it makes them, you might miss it. You got to go out and win. But also get for the common fan, they don't give a hell what I'm talking about. For me, it's like makes it intriguing, but what do they care?
Sure.
So it just makes it more simplified. A win, you're in, and then if you're in the top 5 of points, you haven't won yet, but you've earned you got Blaney and Truex that you're having good results.
Sure.
You just haven't won. I mean, it's harder to win these days anyway, so you really can't fault a guy for not winning when you've got what? I don't have the list right in front of me, but you probably have had 7 guys win only once, 8 guys at least win just one race.
Blaney's second in points.
Yeah,
and he's got to worry about making the playoffs.
Yeah, think about that. It's just, to me, that's backwards.
Especially if they're gonna include this many road course races, which you have a certain number of drivers that just don't even have a chance, and then throw in the fact that Toyota could never get the package right on a road course. They know they have no chance at Watkins Glen. So that's just a wash for Martin Truex Jr. So that's why Truex understands this is it. He will not win Watkins Glen, most likely. He probably has just as much of a chance to win at Daytona as he does at Watkins Glen, which is not very well. So if he does not win this week, he's probably not going to make the playoffs.
No, his only other path is hope Blaney doesn't win, because they're in a predicament where there's only, 18, 19 points between the two.
True.
They could go for stage points here.
That could be interesting.
Which kind of throws everything off. But
especially
if you remember,
on the road course.
Yeah, he could take the stage points and everybody else knowing, hey, I'm not going to finish well. All these guys are going to play the strategy game. I know I'm not winning. Give me those
Yeah.
points. And then Daytona, we saw in the 500, he swept both stages. Wasn't like he had a great car. He just was there and swept. If he sweeps those two stages of those two races, that's 40 points. Yeah. That closes that gap like that. And Blaney now is the one that's a little – because Richmond is a – where Watkins Glen or Daytona are going to be terrible for Truex, Richmond is terrible for Blaney. So Truex should come out of this weekend back in, which then but those two are now in an interesting predicament. Like, we need to win, but we also don't want to punt on points, because what if one of these other guys that have already won keeps winning? Then if I punt it on points and he beats me because he won on points, we only have ourselves to blame. So I think it's an interesting predicament that those two find themselves in, because everybody else is just going for wins at this point.
It's just, and again, it just shows you that it's the stage point thing. It's you're manipulating the process.
Yep. Yeah.
Especially on the road courses. It's just because you're going to see a lot of drivers that are trying to win the race, want to pit 2 laps before, and the drivers that don't pit are only interested in stage points, and they're stealing stage points. It's just
essentially
it's not right. It's just a bad look for the system. But who knows? Maybe Truex wins this week and Blaney wins in Daytona, and we won't have to worry about it. It's possible. We could see it, and we could see 3 completely different drivers win in the next 3 weeks.
I really wouldn't be shocked. Because if you look at it, and let me find it here. I had it up earlier. I wrote about this yesterday. Especially at places like Watkins Glen and Daytona coming up. You've got Daytona ever since 2017, so the second trip. All the drivers but one have earned their first or second career win at that race. You look at road courses this year. 3 of the 4 were won by a first-time winner. The other one was a second-time winner because he just won the Reddick at Indy. And if you go back even to last year, 6 of the last 11 road course races are won by a driver earning a first or second win. Again, you look at Indy, 3 of the top 4 finishers were rookies, like Harrison Burton and Gilliland came out of nowhere. So Watkins Glen could easily produce some crazy winner that, like, hey, we've not even talked about him all year. But look what happened at Indy. Look what happens at Daytona. So yeah, I mean, there's a path you could see your winners these next few weeks. You got Truex, but you might get Eric Jones and Justin Haley. You just might get some wild cards in there that push out an already winner like a Kurt Busch.
Big win for Harvick, and it's interesting because what did we talk about last week? We hope our viewers took advantage of Ford at 4-1, because it was interesting how things Hamlin, and once again they have all sorts of problems on pit road.
Yep.
And then you had Kyle once again having all sorts of problems on the track. So those two were obviously the 2 top drivers that we talked about last week, which was we just couldn't get why we would invest money in odds like that under those circumstances, especially at this track. And I understand, I think, what they were getting at, because we talked about it. It's a 2-mile track, speed matters. Toyota's got the speed over Ford. It should be Toyota, but you just can't do away with all the other trends. It wasn't a complete 360, 180, with the trends where we could go, yeah, but don't even care about what happened in the past. It's a new car, blah, blah, blah. Because of the fact that at least we did have California to go on, and there was no history of Toyota doing anything, whether it was either dominating at California or having any previous history at Michigan as well. So they were just guessing, statistically speaking, that it was going to work out for Toyota. And that's why I was surprised, because that's not what Vegas does. So I think they learned a lesson, maybe. Hopefully not.
I do. Yeah, well, hopefully they're still up the Toyota train for this week, because Toyota could dominate Richmond. But yeah, I mean, you look at 3 of the top 5 finishers were in the Ford, so they completely guessed wrong, and that's why I said this season has no rhyme or reason to it. But past trends at Michigan worked because Ford was the lowest of the 3, and they should have been the favorite. And I haven't seen the odds for this week as far as manufacturers for Richmond, but to me, Toyota should be the favorite. But you also can make a point where do you trust any of their drivers right now to actually win the race this weekend? Maybe those odds come back to our favor, and then you overthink it. It's like, just take Toyota and run, because like last week, if you just would have listened to us and said take Ford and run, you'd be sitting here with some money right now. I'm pretty happy.
Yes. And yeah, because again, if you look at Richmond, you have Toyota winning 9 of the last 13 races. Chevy's only won 1 of the last 8. Ford has only won 1 of the last 9. And here's the reason why this makes even more sense that you should definitely be on the side, though, of Toyota. And that is the fact that they've had a race at Richmond this year. So they've had a race. Toyota won it, of course, with Hamlin. 11 of the last 15, by the way, winners have started in the top 10. 9 of those have started in the top 5 with 2 pole sitters. But if you just look at it recently, only 4 of the last 8 winners at Richmond started inside the top 10. And that includes 11th, 13th, 24th, and 32nd position over the last 8 races. Not sure what that means. I'm not worried too much about that, but I think what it should tell me is once again, I don't think you have to qualify in the top 10. As long as you're qualifying in the top 15 or 20, I think you're okay. But yes, I do think you have to side with Toyota this week, because we do have that race. Not only do we have it from Richmond, but we also have to take some data this week from one of the other short tracks, Martinsville. We don't care about Bristol because that was a dirt track. And then Phoenix because it was flat.
Yep. You could take some data. And again, like you said, we've raced here before. We have a little bit of practice. So these guys are coming back with better notes. Where the spring they had none, and still Toyota won. I'm looking at their minus 120, Toyota is. So it's about where they probably should be.
That's not even that bad, to tell you the truth.
Still no.
If you think Toyota's going to win, their top 4 drivers in odds are all Toyotas.
Yeah, and they're getting them at 120. So that's pretty good. Yeah, I would take that right now, because in qualifying, the reason that it doesn't matter is this track is aged. And like Blaney was saying in the spring when he won the pole, is like, look, my race car isn't necessarily that great. It's qualifying, you attack the track. You go hard because you don't worry about tire fall off. You're just going for 2 laps and you get the best lap out of that. In the race, you can't drive like you do in qualifying. You have to be gentle with the tires. You have to ease into the corners, save your tires. The guys that charge or are too aggressive, their tires are going to burn off, and they're going to go by going too fast, you're going to go too slow. So that's why this suits veterans. 3 of the top 4 finishers in the spring were all in their 40s. That's why you see that here compared to other tracks that are newly paved, and you can be aggressive. It doesn't worry about tire fall off.
I think Chastain had that problem because he dominated really in the top 2 stages. I think he was 3rd in both stages, and then he just completely fell off the map in the final stage.
Yeah, and you look at Byron leading the final stage for a while, and then he got gobbled up by Hamlin and Harvick, who had got tires, saved them well enough for the 50 laps, and caught them and passed them. So, yeah, this is a veteran-type track, and Toyotas have veterans. And I'm looking at one, if you go on like DraftKings right now and you look at the manufacturer-specific odds, I don't know what they're thinking with this one, but I would jump in the Ford category, and their favorite, which for this is they have the Fords, and they're saying, who do you think is going to be the top finisher out of these guys? Blaney, who has never had a top 5 at Richmond, is the favorite right now.
Well, I think Logano obviously should be favorite over Blaney. Harvick should probably also be favorite over Blaney. I think that would be it, though, right? Just keep this in mind, because I completely look, we've talked about this the last year or two about Blaney's struggles at a couple of these tracks, and keeping in mind that I think was one of them Darlington too.
Darlington's another one. Yeah, he's told me specifically these are his worst tracks.
So,
which if you look at tire wear tracks.
Okay.
He's not good at these tracks.
So the good news, though, was what we talked about during Blaney's camp. The good news is that this year, new car, and by the way, the previous 2 trips here, he finished his best results, 11th and 10th. So, all right, I'm starting to get a little bit better here. So this year, he finally finishes inside the top 10. And even though he finished 7th, in actuality, he was running in the top 5 the entire day. He did start to finally fade a little late. He was on the pole. He led the first stage the whole way, led 128 laps. Let's also keep in mind he was 4th at Martinsville and 4th at Phoenix. That
True.
combination at 12-1, needing to desperately win, is the reason in my mind that I think, because I said this a couple weeks ago, that I was just going to bet on these guys if they need wins, which is why I stick with Harvick, stick with Truex, and will continue to stick with Blaney and Truex this week. So I think a couple of years ago, this would have been a disaster. There's no way. But at least now I think Blaney has something positive. But I completely agree with you. I still think he should be behind Logano and Harvick.
Yeah, and I think the sleeper out of this one, which I'd place a little bet early on him, would be Chase Briscoe, plus 1,200. He won Phoenix. I think he was 11th at Richmond back in the spring. He needs to win because he's kind of in that little group.
I got Briscoe at Bovada at 50-1.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Fords. Top 4. All he has to do is just beat all the other Fords, and he's 12-1, which is pretty good odds if he doesn't have to beat anybody else but Fords. Yeah, and you look at the Ford grouping, it's like he could beat if Blaney looks like he has in the past at Richmond. Harvick's got to win, so we'll see how aggressive he is. Logano's just kind of been slumping. If he could beat those guys, that's all he's got to beat.
That's not bad. 12-1 to beat those guys.
Yeah. But 50-1, yeah, he's definitely worth a look just as a long shot sleeper for 50-1 for a guy that, again, like I said, he needs to win. He's already got to win, but it doesn't guarantee him anything anymore. So I think they've got to be aggressive and try to go get it.
As far as overall, again, you've got these 4 as the odds. The thing with, and by the way, we only had, as far as our picks, we only had 1 driver we all picked. 1.
Ooh, 1. Let me think here of that 1.
And by the way, last week, what's that?
Is it a Gibbs guy?
I'm not gonna, Who? Your sound is down again.
Christopher Bell.
No.
Chastain?
No. You were the only one that took Chastain. You and I took Bell.
Truex.
Yes.
I'm gonna say because I remember you're obviously taking some drivers that are like Truex. CJ has Truex too on his fantasy team, and he's 7-1. I thought was pretty good. So yeah, he probably would have taken him. Yeah. So that makes sense.
Well, actually, now he's 6-1, but he's tied with Hamlin at 6-1. Now here's the thing.
Oh, he dropped. That's right. He dropped between that and the last night. Yeah, I think people started.
But the thing is that see, Elliott and Larson are 9-1 and 10-1. In reality, I believe that, let's just say we're just looking at this race, just looking at the race, looking at the racetrack. We're not thinking about how the season's going. Just look at the race, look at the racetrack, look at the history, look at all the drivers that are competing. I think Elliott and Larson, I'd put Elliott as the highest I'd put him would be 12-1. Yep. And I wouldn't put Larson, I'd put probably 15-1. So they're getting the odds are definitely a lot lower because of who they are and the history. But this is not a week to even think about, as far as I'm concerned. And you too. I mean, CJ went with Elliott and Larson, but he kind of tends to go with most of the favorites early to try to go week to week in that strategy. But I just don't see it. I just don't see why I would wager on Elliott and Larson at those odds this week.
No, and they've struggled on short tracks in general all season, not just Richmond. they're not that great at Richmond already. But because you look at the two tracks that Elliott had success on, they're not anywhere close to racing like Richmond. And the rest of them, he's just barely in the top 10. Kyle Larson on short tracks all year has 2 top 10s. None better than 5th. So yeah, I don't think this is their track. And with this package, we've seen, I don't know if they're not tinkering. It's the same short track package that we've seen in the past, even though they've done some testing, they haven't made any changes to this car. And we've seen it kind of be a young snooze fest, like not a lot of cautions. So you got less cars on the lead lap. Therefore, you don't get that fluke guy that like, oh, I'm going to take tires at the end or not take tires at the end because I'm on the lead lap. That's where Alex Bowman won this race a couple years ago. Not granted, spring race was the day race. I just don't see that happening this week. I think that'd be the only way Larson or Elliott could win is something like that. And I just don't see it because I think you've given these Toyota guys who've already been good there, who were good there again in the spring, 400 laps of basically test session data you could use for this. You know which direction you want to go in because they're both day races. It's not like one's a day race and one's a night race. So I feel like the notebook is building up to, yeah, they got it right.
And then
Toyotas, they got it right, not Hamlin or Larson.
How rare is it to see Christopher Bell at 8-1 as, one of the almost the co-favorite? But if you're ever going to take Christopher Bell, you got to take him this week. We both grabbed Bell because he's just a monster at Richmond. He's got 3 Xfinity wins at Richmond. And he was 6th this year, leading 63 laps. And in 4 races at Richmond, he's been 6th or better 3 of those 4. So this is definitely, I was a little bit 8-1 Christopher Bell, but okay, it's good enough based on how strong he is, and he's Toyota, that I was willing to go ahead and put some money on him, just like you did.
Yeah, I mean, he's too good here. If you take his name off and just look at the stats, you'd be like, I think even 8-1 might be a little low for him. Right. I mean, you're getting a bargain at 8-1, and he's running well in the season. He just won New Hampshire. That was his win. So, yeah, I think you could kind of take a little bit of New Hampshire and translate that over to Richmond. So, yeah, for 8-1, yeah, it's a little bit lower than I'd want, but I'm still getting a decent number at 8-1 for him. So, yeah, he's one you had to take.
And let's talk a little fantasy here because Bubba came through.
Yep.
Bubba almost won, finished in 2nd. So I picked him up at the right time, obviously. And now he's got 8th or better in 4 straight. He was almost crying at the end of the race because he thought he should have won. He kind of felt he let the team down. He's very emotional, but he didn't let anybody down. So he did as good as I think he could have done. Sure, maybe he could have done something, but it was Kevin Harvick's time. So here's the interesting thing. As I always say, when I look at the odds, I save the odds from the previous race, and then I move them up. And so it makes it a lot easier for me to make changes because the odds are pretty similar and I don't have to make a whole lot of moves. So Bubba Wallace, do you realize that when I moved Bubba Wallace and all the odds up, what I had to do with Bubba Wallace was take a 0 off of his odds to go from 150-1 to 15-1. That's what he was at Richmond earlier this year. 150-1, and now he's 15-1. I was a little bit concerned with him being 15-1 right off the bat, but considering it's a Toyota, that was the reason why I was willing to at least put $10 on him.
Same. I kind of almost made my money back with him. I feel like he's so good on the season. He's the hot hand. I mean, like you said, 3 of those 4 are in the top 5. And Toyota with that track being good there, it's like he's got all that data. He's got all that data from the spring. He sees everything the Gibbs guys are running well there. We see what Christopher Bell does. It's like it just almost is adding up. Like you just get the sense that a win's coming for him. He's just been that close that it's like I forget what race car driver told me a few weeks ago. It's in India. It might have been Will Power. But if you're around the top long enough, you're going to find a win. If you don't change anything, you just keep doing there, eventually something's going to fall into your lap. He's there. He's that guy. He's just right there. And you just get the feeling that I'd almost be shocked if he doesn't win over the next 3 races. Granted, Watkins Glen is not going to be strong for him with the Toyota, but Daytona is that place.
Yeah.
But I almost just get the feeling that it's like he may have that win before we get there, and if it's not Watkins Glen, it's this, and you get a bargain. I think. Granted, not usually you get a bargain for Bubba Wallace at these odds for a track outside of a Daytona or Talladega. But I feel like his Toyota, like we talked about a lot at Richmond and how he's run on the season, you got to take him for these odds right now because there's a reason that 15-1 he could win. And it seems like this year we've had a lot of 12 and 15-1 winners.
Last week, what was Harvick 20-1 last week or 12?
25-1.
25-1. Wow.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Matter of fact, just to show you how things have changed, Wallace, when I had him on the odds earlier this year, he was still Wallace Jr.
Now they moved him to Wallace. They took the junior.
Yeah. So now he's Wallace. So that just shows you things are changing. And speaking of fantasy, okay. It's time for you to officially shout out to QB Chad P. Because QB Chad P, we received a comment. And of course, we definitely want everybody to let us know your feelings on anything we talk about. You have any questions or suggestions? Like QB Chad P, who said, I believe it was on Thursday or Friday, drop Kurt Busch and add Ty Gibbs to your fantasy team from Michigan. I think the 45 car will finish top 10 and help you out with your fantasy points. So I forwarded this off to Eric. Eric's been having some issues with his computer, which is why he hasn't been able to sync in with the YouTube page yet, but he'll get there soon enough and he'll be able to start commenting first.
I think I got it. I was busy in Nashville playing around with it, but my kid likes his own YouTube account, so I can monitor it when I set it up. I actually set it up for my email address. So, but it's under his name, and I didn't want anybody, these other people commenting, to think that some 8-year-old kid is responding to him when it's really me. Yeah. And it's like, how do I get this linked when my email isn't tied to it? So I was able to use my other Gmail to kind of get it. So I think I got it.
Okay.
But yeah, thank you for the hat tip, because Gibbs got a top 10, and now now you're hoping
probably Kurt Busch doesn't come back. Who knows?
Yeah.
Gibbs won at Richmond this year.
Exactly. And then next week's a road course, and he's really good there. So I'm like, Kurt doesn't come back, I can just ride this out with him right now. Because
wouldn't you suggest that if you were the owner of the team?
I would almost now, because Kurt...
Just rest for a few weeks, Kurt. Get ready for the playoffs.
Yeah. Sorry, I dropped my pen.
Especially Daytona. Don't come back for Daytona either. Just come back when the playoffs start.
I would be concerned with him is like, hey, you need a win. But with Daytona, if it gets to Daytona and let's say we get through this week. Let's say he doesn't race. We get through this week. We got to dodge another bullet. Toyotas are not good at Watkins Glen anyways. And it's a road course left and right. Maybe you sit him out again. If you're still at 15 winners, let's just say we got 2 guys that win these next 2 weeks that have already won a race, then we know he's in. It doesn't matter if you get a 16th. Daytona's a race that we've seen cars get upside down, hard hits. Do you really want to risk putting him in that race?
Nope.
I would rest him and then let him, because that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks off going in the playoffs. Maybe he's mentally ready again.
That could be a big bonus.
It could be.
Yeah.
You maybe get him in a simulator, or honestly, you try to find a way to get him in maybe an Xfinity race or 2 to get a little bit sharper going. Maybe he runs the Xfinity race at Darlington or something to get him. I mean, he's been doing this long enough. I think he could take 6 weeks off and hop back in and not have any effects by this.
Not a problem.
But I think it does indirectly maybe make Gibbs rethink him saying that Ty's not ready for Cup for 23. We don't want to rush him along like he did to Logano, and maybe look at him now and be like, we're not getting any headway with Kyle. Kyle's talking to other teams. He's my grandson. He's cheaper. He's got some sponsorship. Maybe we bring him up. Maybe he is ready. I mean, the dude in his 3rd start got a top 10. And if you look at it, and I'm not trying to sway anything against Bubba here, but he was struggling to get top 10s with the same exact team until these last 4 weeks. This kid just did it once in 3 starts with them, and he's never been in a Cup car, especially this next gen, prior to that. So to me, that kind of says a lot with him. I mean, he had almost a top 15 in a race that he just hopped in the car and ran it at Pocono. So, yeah, maybe he's ready. Maybe he's better than we all thought we all think he's good,
Sure,
but maybe he's even better than we think.
You never know.
So, yeah, I mean, he could take that car and do things with it that I think this kid could be pretty special here.
So taking a look at the standings, and I was able to actually, thank goodness, because the bonus points are coming soon with the playoffs. So I was able to move up a little bit because I finished first and second, and also I think I had Blaney in sixth, I believe.
Yeah.
No, fifth.
3 in the top 5.
3 in the top 5, so that was helpful. And then CJ still in second place. He's leading you now, though, by what? 85 points?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so Gibbs right there, as you can see, 30 points. So if you would have kept with Kurt Busch, you would.
It's 30 less points I'd have
right
now.
So that was there it is. There's the move. Team waves Kurt Busch for Ty Gibbs. So that's official. Yeah, and you can get this on, as you can see, you can get this right here, Race Review Online. Just check it out. Go to the NASCAR section, and he has it right here. Prime Sports NASCAR Weekly Fantasy Team heading to Richmond. So, yeah, Harvick, meanwhile, by the way, 20-1, though. I couldn't pass on Harvick at 20-1.
No.
I mean, I had to put a couple of bucks on him because he was second earlier this year. We talked about that last week, that we thought this week was the more realistic chance that he was going to win because he was second this year. And he does have 3 wins at the track, 16 top 5s, but he hasn't led a lap in his last 3 races, and he's not led more than 63 laps at any race at Richmond since 2011. So there are a little bit of issues there, but you're getting 20-1.
Yeah, and you look too. Look where he finished at Phoenix, a similar track earlier this year. He was right there. He was right there on the final restart at that too. He's got 7 top 8s in his last date at Richmond. He's got 3 top 10s in the 5 short tracks, or 6 now. So I think he's one that for his odds this week, yeah, you cannot pass him up. And we've seen in the past too. Could he? Yeah, he went almost 70 starts without a win. But do you really think he's going to win 2 in a row?
Probably.
Yeah, sometimes. Probably not, but sometimes, yeah. You've seen a guy, oh, that's what it's like to win again. Oh, yeah.
Tony Finau did it in golf just a few weeks ago.
Keeps going.
One back-to-back.
Speaking of Tony Stewart in the 2011 playoffs, I think he won winless the regular season.
That, yeah.
He won like 5 or 6 of the 10 playoff races to win the championship.
Yeah.
So
he was nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and maybe Harvick, maybe this is a comparison. Granted, he just won, but maybe he can do something special here because, yeah, I mean, you're still remarkably getting really good odds for the guy that just finished second at this track last time out and just won the last race. So to me, you add just those 2 simple philosophies together, you should probably be 9 or 10-1.
Yeah.
But you're getting double those odds. So got to run with it.
And Logano's also 20-1. Which again, I'm like, okay, I don't understand that because if you look at Logano, overall with his history at the track, he has 12 top 5s and 2 wins. But look at this, he's got 13 top 10s in his last 16 at Richmond with 10 top 5s, 2 runner-ups, and 2 wins. He was second at Martinsville this year, and if you look at his trends, they're like perfect. Over the last 6 races, he's gotten better in each race in the last 6 races on the season, including 6th and 4th in his last 2 races. So he keeps trending in the right direction. And I just think Logano and Harvick at 20-1 were too easy for me to not put money on. And I also threw a couple of bucks on Byron because I'm looking at Byron and Bowman at 30-1, pretty much the same. Maybe they're just starting to get going again. Remember, we said not going to go there unless we see some signs of life. Well, Byron in his last 4 races, 12th, 12th, and 11th out of 4 races. Bowman in his last 2 races, 9th and 11th. So we're both, and let's keep in mind that Bowman has a win at Richmond. He was 8th this year at Richmond. He's got 4 straight top 12s at Richmond. And Byron, we just talked about, 122 laps he led earlier this year at Richmond. Got passed by Hamlin, which has 5 laps to go for the win. And he's got 4 top 15s in 8 races. And he won Martinsville. So I just felt Byron and Bowman, the odds are too big. I'll put a little bit of money there just to see if they're ready to break out. And Logano, like I said, I just think it was too much of a no-brainer.
Yeah, I obviously had Harvick, but Logano would be my one out of those just because he's starting to look like Logano again. Well, he was down for a while this season. Like you said, he's inching better and better. And, 6th, 4th, it's like, here he comes. This is the guy that, and the trends are right in 2022. Every even year he gets the championship 4. Here we go.
He's on the top of your futures list too.
He is. I mean, he keeps falling down, and it's like he's in the playoffs. You don't have to worry about him. And this is a typical Logano season to where he'll slump. You won't talk about him. He'll fly under the radar, and then all of a sudden you look up like, man, that dude has like 5 straight top 10s, and 3 of them are in the top 5. And all of a sudden, now he won. Now he's second. Now we're in the playoff. He's right there again. So, I mean, what was he this past 20-1, something crazy like that in the championship too?
20-1, along with Harvick and Truex.
Yeah, just baffling. I mean, you get 3 champions at 20-1 right now, and 2 of them we know are in the playoffs.
Yeah,
snag them now. It's like there's no threat for Logano and Harvick. They're in, and they're good on these tracks in the playoffs. There's a reason they thrive in the playoffs. So, yeah, it's a steal right now for those 2 in the futures.
Yeah, Logano is actually the only driver you have right now where you can make good money on your futures list. So you can make over $4,000 if Joey Logano wins the championship. So a definite, not only for this week, but for the championship. Okay, and then Kurt Busch, you just can't do anything until you figure out whether because there hasn't been any word yet, right? I know it's only Tuesday.
No, I don't think so. Usually, I think it's late Tuesdays or
around this time.
It seems like they.
But look, if Ty Gibbs races, I mean, fantasy-wise, it's a good move.
I mean, plus the way he's, with Xfinity and everything combined on the one, it's just too hard to pass him up if he races.
Winning Richmond this year. Okay, also a little bit further on down, as far as the only long shots that we took we put some money on. I put money on Dillon. CJ put money on Jones and Kozlowski, and you put money on Dillon as well. By the way, you also put a few bucks on Suarez. But as far as those long shots, we both put money on Dillon. Why not, right? 11th or better in 6 of his last 7 races at Richmond, and he was 3rd at Martinsville.
Yep, and he needs a win.
Needs a win.
He has to win. And I don't think he's mentioned he's not great on road courses, so it's here at Daytona. Just get out of the way now, and he's been so good that, I mean, for those odds, and we've seen this crazy season, I would not be shocked. I mean, it's almost, again, where his odds are is steal. Him and Briscoe being down there are no-brainers.
Yeah. And then, by the way, as far as the top picks, so you put half of your money invested, a little bit more than half, on the 2 drivers at the top, Hamlin and Truex. So you kind of a little bit went in that direction again, where you stockpiled a little bit on the favorites. Why did you do that?
I just felt, again, I thought this a few weeks ago with Elliott and Larson here at Indy, but I just feel like Hamlin's been so good at Richmond lately. I mean, even last year, he finished 2nd in both races, but dominated both. Ironically enough, he doesn't dominate the spring and comes out with a win. We've seen him if he doesn't have pit road problems or a DQ, he's been running good lately. I mean, he technically won Pocono. He was 3rd last week, even with the penalty. So I thought, let's win. I feel like he should win, and I feel like Truex should win too. I feel like they both have a path to both. So let's capitalize, because again, it's a veteran track. If this was more wide open, I'd say I wouldn't put as much on him. But I just feel like a veteran's going to win. It seems
it's
like
not
a veteran
bad
always wins
to at least feel that half of your money, you're 50% that one of those 2 guys will be there at the end.
Exactly. Then I got the other 50 spread across on
Yeah.
some longer shots. A couple of guys to just win your money back. Just I don't feel great about them, but
Yeah.
I also wouldn't be shocked if they won. So I kind of spread it out and feel like out of those guys, I've got to win, or at least I'm gonna get some kind of profit this week.
Hamlin, as you mentioned, 6th or better in 11 of his last 13 Richmond races with 2 runner-ups and 2 wins. He has led at least 148 laps at Richmond over his career 8 times, including 251 laps, 299 laps, and 381 laps. That's how much he's dominated this track. Like you said, he stole the race in the spring. And in his last 3 at Richmond, first, second, and second, leading 409 laps. Truex, the defending champ, 7 straight top 5s. We referenced this last week with a runner-up and 3 wins. He's had at least 80 laps led in 9 of his last 11 races at Richmond, including in the spring when he finished 4th, got passed late. I think he was running 2nd or 3rd. He got passed late by Hamlin with 6 to go. And he's led over 1,200 laps in his last 11 races. 2 things worry me about Truex. One, the results were not good at Martinsville or Phoenix. 2, I don't really like what happened last week with his crew chief. I don't know what that was about. And is there something, because we've talked about this whole Truex crew chief issue ever since he left, ever since he lost his brother, his championship head coach a couple of years ago. That will he be able to win a championship game, without his Bill Belichick? Can he do it? I don't know if this means anything.
You can tell it almost get the sense that he's done this multiple times this year, jiving with James Small, like he did with Cole Pern. And sometimes guys bounce back and rally, and they run off into like a Brady Belichick when they did in the New England days. We'd see this and they'd win like the next 10 games and bet hunky-dory again. I don't think that's going to happen with Truex, but I do think he's just so good here that he can overcome some deficiency. Plus, I still they raced here in the spring and he led 80 laps, and they know where the fall off is and where to be better. I expect big things. And plus, he has to win anyways. I expect big things. And if you just take those stats, like we just mentioned for both of them, and even look at the season, they're running better still. Normal years, they'd probably be 3 and 4 to 1. But this year, you're getting them at 6 to 1. I think just because of the parity. And I think Vegas doesn't quite trust Hamlin just because with the penalties, and we've seen him dominate and not win, that they thought, he's the only one won twice this year, and he's had better cars. So we'll maybe set him aside, but he's just that good there. And Truex, 4 top 2s in his last 6 there, too. It's like 6 to 1, I just had to take them and put more money those odds their way.
Yeah, that's the other thing with Hamlin too, is that that's why I stood away from it, because the 2 favorites, and there are other drivers that are very qualified to win this race, but there are these issues with Hamlin and his pit crew. There are these issues with Truex, and it just to go out there with the favorites, I just couldn't do it, and that's worked for me okay recently, especially, but it could backfire on me, and it could be a big advantage for you on any given week, because we know they are by far the 2 that should be favored. They should be co-favored for a reason. But like you also said, under normal circumstances, they should probably both be like 3 to 1 to win this race. So you're getting good odds, better than they are, because they are having all these other issues.
So. Yeah, which is exactly why I like Bell at 8 to 1, is because if those 2 have issues, I feel like Bell's going to be right there to capitalize.
Yeah.
I feel like he's right. That 20 car, even when Eric Jones was in it, was good at Richmond. That I just feel like if the trust isn't there, you've got the safety net right there at 8 to 1 that I feel like will be right there. That if those 2 fumble this thing away, like we've seen happen more times than not this season, you should have Christopher Bell sitting right there.
And 2 more things before I let you go. One, we did not at all. I don't think we mentioned his name. No, I think we mentioned his name once. Kyle Busch.
Yep.
So
we haven't. Yeah, I mentioned just because it's the silly season. That's all the time we mention it. He's not finished in the top 10 since Gateway in like June 3rd. He's no top 10 since then, and you just get the sense, like we keep saying, the silly season and not having his
Till it's
future
over.
solidified is in his head.
That's it.
And you just look at his results. I mean, he's barely in the top 15. I mean, he's only got 2 top 15 finishes in that span, let alone a top 10. He's got 2 top 15s. He's more times than not outside the top 20 and a few outside the top 30. So I just, for his odds this week and for that, I mean, he's so far going down that hill. I just don't think you can just magically jump to the top again. I just don't see it this week.
And they just keep putting his odds low like this every week.
Yeah, it's like they would have baited me if he was like 15-1, 16-1.
And
I
I'm going to
might have jumped in.
Yeah, he's too good to pass up at those odds. Yes.
But at the odds he's at now, it's like nobody in their right mind is going to take him. There's just no reason right now to.
Because he's got 12 top 10s in his last 13 at Richmond, 3 runner-ups and 2 wins. But he's only led 45 laps over his last 4 races combined at Richmond as well. Okay,
yep.
I want to close out because last week we talked about you putting up the interview. You were part of the Zoom call. Who is it? Who was on that call again?
Oh, Felix Rosenquist and Colton Herta.
Colton Herta. By the way, you know how they're constantly showing, not, sometimes they'll show the interviewer and then it'll go to the. I hadn't looked at the beginning of it. I was just trying to find where your stuff was. When I first looked at it, I was like, "Who the hell is this? Who the hell is this interviewer?" And it was Colton Herta. Because I was like, "Hey, this guy looks really unprofessional. Who is this guy?" And then I realized, wait a second. I go, "That's Colton Herta."
Yep, he did a. We're waiting out the rain delay in Nashville. It was, I don't know if anybody saw the pre-race show for that, but it was a disaster because with lightning and I like Nashville. I think they should stay. It's the Daytona and Talladega of the IndyCar schedule, as far as even with the street course. But everything's so spread apart, and with the lightning delay, you couldn't have. You see in NASCAR races, even with the lightning delay, they'll go to they're not haulers, their RVs, their motorhomes, and still interview them, and they could be in the garage.
Yeah.
Well, it's so far apart. The drivers and the TV were separate, so they were doing Zoom calls, and a lot of them, the calls, they couldn't hear each other. The drivers were awkwardly looking at a camera. Well, Colton Herta did his in his bed, which is completely weird. Seeing this driver literally not just sitting up in his bed, he's laying in his bed holding a phone or an iPad or something. I'm like, this is so awkward for national television to see these. It would be like, this Lakers and Golden State Warriors games on a delay. So we can't get to the locker room, and it's on such a delay. Steph Curry went home, and he's laying in bed, and we're going to interview him before the game. It's like, that's just weird to me. But yeah, so he does his Zoom calls in really weird places.
So that actually wasn't all that bad then.
No, not compared to what what was Sunday. Yeah.
So I think it's BJS. If F1 in F1 you want to see options, as F1 is the goal of the driver, anything else is a big no. I assume in IndyCar you have managers. Certainly in F1, the management team will ensure the driver cannot be moved sideways and out of F1.
IndyCar guys have managers, but they still control a lot of things. Even Palou has a lot of managers handling his contracts and stuff, but we asked him point blank, are you happy with your management? Are you happy with the guidance? Are you happy with what they're doing? And he said he has input in all of it. It's at the end of the day, it's his decision. And like Colton and Felix and those guys are mentioning, they know what's in their language. And whereas I get because you think a lot of these athletes, it's like, I don't want to get involved with contract talks or know what the lingo or anything. My management team will handle it. You talk to them. But a lot of these IndyCar guys, they want to know. And as you see, rightfully so, you kind of have to. Rossi, I know his dad handles his stuff. So a lot of times a family member might handle it. But, F1 guys don't necessarily want to go backwards, or IndyCar guys. He's right. A lot of the goal is to get to F1. But these options are getting messy. These options are – I think eventually you're going to see them eliminated because teams – your team – and you see this Palou situation, you don't want to give the driver control in the contract. You hold the option. And if you're the driver, you don't want the team to hold the option on you. So when it comes down to getting the contract signed, I have a feeling because the team at the end of the day is the team. The driver has to race for them. The teams are going to win out. With drivers are going to say, let's mutually not take any options and let's sign this deal through here. That's what you're going to have to end up seeing, or this is just going to get messier and messier because you're getting to a point where drivers get to force their way out, and that's not fair either. So there's no right answer right now, but it's chaos. It's definitely chaos.
And I understand where the drivers are coming from. At that age, I would want nothing to do. I'd be like, hey man, I pay this guy to handle that. I don't want to, that's why I chose this guy for the exact reason. And if I need somebody to look over his shoulder, it's going to be my dad. It's going to be my best friend. It's going to be someone else that I'm going to pay, or it's going to be a family member to look over the guy's shoulder that's helping me. So I have two people. I got one backup, one smart guy. I'm not involved. So just get me involved when I have to get involved.
Yeah, and you would think someone like Pelot would have done that. And the fact that he says he didn't, or even he, like, hey, they just announced, like, so where did this fail? Where did somebody say, hey, they exercise your option, and then you let McLaren announce that you signed with him? Like, you can't have your name on two documents that you would expect smarter people to be in control of this situation. Yeah. So it just doesn't make sense.
And then the last one was a little back and forth because Tommy Hubbs, boy, he's a little bit, he's got something to get off his chest. All this contract talk in IndyCar, a sport with maybe 500,000 fans. Maybe. More like 25,000 or so hardcores, if that. IndyCar is a club series of oddballs. So Joshua Wilson took exception. The Indy 500 alone brings around 400 to 500K fans for a one-day event, so I'm not sure where you got that from. And Tommy Hubbs replied, that is a bogus horse sheet attendance number. Try again. It was never 500,000 and maybe never 400,000, ever. Don't be a fanboy. And the estimated fan number comes from the accumulated TV and streaming data. We won't count IMS radio because 10,000 extra is irrelevant. It is a tiny niche sport. But what do you have to say about Tommy Hubbs, who seems to be all against IndyCar?
I mean, something like IndyCar, look, they're way more than what he said. I would say the hardcore fan base lies between 400 to 500,000 people. Honestly, that's probably your people that no matter what's going on, it's appointment TV. If you're on national TV, double it. You probably get around that million. I think that's kind of the floor is you're on NBC. You just seem to get about 1 million people. That's probably about what you're going to get. That's probably your hardcores, your 400 to 500,000. Casuals probably bump it to 1 million. The Indy 500 numbers, I know I can't speak for the 90s because I was elementary school and then going into middle school. For the attendance numbers, I wasn't really old enough to really know what the hell was going on there for the 400 to 500,000. So I'm not saying it's true. I'm not saying it's false, but I do know the Indy 500 these days, between 300,000 and 400,000 is 400,000 the 100th running. There's 220,000 permanent seats. I know there's 75,000 suite seats. There's another 35,000 you can pack in the infield. So you add all that up, and it's in your sellout. That's where the numbers come from. So, yeah, I think they're both kind of the guy in the middle, but they're both kind of right in a way. But I that's why the safe number is 350.
And look, I completely also see where Tommy's coming from because of the fact that, look, we see how IndyCar is treated in the United States. We do. It's almost treated like the way tennis is to the major sports here. It's like, yeah, but it's more of a sport for the people outside, the international crowd. They're more into tennis. They're more into soccer. They're more into F1 and IndyCar. That's their sport. There's not that much of a following here. And I can kind of see that too from coverage. That's what really, we actually complain a lot ourselves about NASCAR coverage. I mean, we think NASCAR coverage should be a lot better. I still can't believe that after races, they used to have, in the old days, they used to have that show on DirecTV. What was that show they used to have after the race? The guy in the radio studio.
Yeah.
He would sit there and take people's questions. They'd be on for
Take
2 or 3
calls and yeah.
hours.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a wind tunnel. Is it wind tunnel or
Yes.
something like
How do
that?
you not
Yeah.
have a show like that on?
Well, go to Peacock. That's what baffles my mind is these people that subscribe put a show on Peacock and IndyCar. Their problem was exposed on Sunday. Granted, I was there, so I didn't get to watch much of it on TV because I was there. I was covering it. The feed was already up, so it's like it doesn't matter what channel it gets moved to. They're not the feed that we're watching doesn't get moved. But the prime example is this weekend, in that you have NASCAR and IndyCar at the same exact time. That's the problem, especially if you're IndyCar and you're on NBC and you want exposure. You don't have these guys at the same time because you're splitting the fan bases. It's better, like we talked about, to have one lead into the other
Yes.
because they don't have to change the channel all day. That's problem number one. Problem number two is nothing against women's golf, but why in the hell is women's golf bumping IndyCar to CNBC at the start of the race? It should be, if that was NASCAR, women's golf would be the one getting bumped. If that was the NFL, women's golf would be the one getting bumped. Why is IndyCar the one sitting on the back seat while women's golf, or last year, tennis, is bumping them off? And then the other factor is you can tell where NBC Sports really think. They think IndyCar is, like the gentleman was saying before, is a niche sport. They gave IndyCar, you could tell, a 3 to 6 window. And once it hit 6 o'clock in the middle of the damn race, they switched them to CNBC so they could play the East Coast news. And the West Coast got infomercials.
Wow.
So if that was an NFL game, I don't think – well, it happens. I've seen it. The NFL window is, 8:15 to 11 on Sunday Night Football? And I have many a times where I'm watching the game. It's 49ers and the Chiefs. They don't stop at 11 for my local newscast.
Of course not.
You keep the game going.
Yeah.
And the NASCAR race, they don't say, oh, well, we've ran over. There's 50 to go, but we're going to go to infomercials. You turn over to USA or you go to CNBC. No, they keep it alone. But IndyCar, you just go to CNBC. You go to Peacock, which is why the numbers kind of plateaued. They're growing, but they're not growing like they used to, is because of that reason. Like my own mom's texting me, your kids, she was watching my kids from this weekend when I was in Nashville. They want to watch the race, and all we see is women's golf. Women's golf. Oh, let me find out. Oh, they're on CNBC. Oh, well, why? I don't know. So it's just that kind of stuff that IndyCar needs to figure out a way in their next contract, which everybody thought was great. Hey, they got 14 races on network TV. Well, I think we're kind of seeing maybe that 14 races on network TV wasn't all that great in a sense. You get bumped, or next week when Gateway, your race is on Saturday, which you think, hey, Saturday primetime, under the lights, network TV. They put them at 6 o'clock Eastern on USA on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Who's watching that? Who knows even it's there?
Yeah.
So just move it to a Saturday afternoon race like the Xfinity Series. But so they're not. It's not good the way some of these races have run from NBC, and that's where IndyCar. It's not IndyCar's fault, other than they signed the contract. But if you're handed a contract with 14 of your 17 on network TV and a pay increase, you kind of have to take it. But it doesn't help you grow further. So
I'm just surprised that there isn't a channel. I don't understand. I don't understand how there's not a motorsports channel. I can't figure that out.
Peacock would figure out a way now at this point. And I'm okay with if IndyCar does that and they lose a little bit of viewership, but they get paid more money off Peacock. If that will increase, we don't have to worry about switching channels. You get your own show. You get a long post-race show. I'm all for it. And have NASCAR House there. Yeah, to me it makes a lot more sense.
And at the end of the day, you have your post shows that just talk about the day's races. You got to talk about IndyCar, F1, NASCAR. You can talk for 3 or 4 hours. You can never have more than enough racing to discuss. And I don't get it. Everybody wants to make money. I don't understand how they don't get that they can make money that way. Why do they think that nobody would watch? It would be the only network or the only programming for them to tune in for. So you would get everybody knowing that you can't miss this. This is the one show. This is the one time of week that you have to watch this, because they talk about all of our series. They talk about everything that we want them to talk about. And it's always on every week at this day and time. I don't understand how they can't do that. I just don't. No.
Seems too simple.
It does. Well, we'll have to figure. Maybe we'll take advantage of that. And
yeah, there we go.
Pocket the money ourselves. That's why you have to hang out with us and donate on our Patreon page at Prime SN. And we will definitely let everybody know too in the near future that we're coming up with all sorts of cool stuff, including we still haven't figured out the race that we're going to do live, but we will figure that out soon enough. Hopefully we'll figure that out before football season, because doing a NASCAR race during football season just isn't going to work unless we do it on a Saturday night.
That would be about it.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's sitting there waiting for the race to the start and listen to our commentary when you can watch your favorite NFL team.
Yeah.
I'm not naive enough to think that they care what we think. So, yeah, I agree.
All right, Eric. We'll talk to you again next week as we preview Watkins Glen. And hopefully we'll have a lot more fun stuff to talk about regarding the playoffs. Who knows? Maybe we'll have a new driver winning and bumping somebody out. So thanks a lot.
You never know.
Yeah, you never know.
Thank you.
It's NASCAR 2022. Yep. What was that motto from last year?
Best season yet, or best season ever, something like that.
Yet. That's it. 2022. Best season.
Now it really is. Yep.